Press conference by Foreign Minister IWAYA will now begin. Over to you, Minister. Thank you for your patience waiting. Sorry to be late. A happy new year to everyone. I received a lot of support this year. I hope that I will be able to receive the continuous support for this year. Since this is the first press conference in 2025, let me share the aspirations for this year at the outset of this conference. This year is the year of snake. This means that even though we may be faced with some difficulties, we will make advances and tiding over ups and downs, and through the effort try to stabilize the things. This seems to be the significance attached to the year of snake. We predict rapid changes in the international situations. Therefore, through the diplomacy of dialogue on cooperations, we would like to lead the world from separations to the cooperations, and we are resolved to defend the peace of Japan as well as the region and work on the diplomacy. I met with the U.S. Secretary of State Blinken. With Secretary Blinken, we exchange views on various topics such as regional situations, securities, economy, and cooperations amongst the like-minded countries. And we have reaffirmed the importance of maintaining and strengthening the ever stronger relationship between Japan and U.S. Secretary Blinken has been working for the 4 years and has been making efforts to strengthen the relationship between Japan and U.S. and toward the international situations. And he has made tremendous effort. I would like to pay respect as well as to convey my gratitude. This month, the second Trump administrations will be inaugurated with a new Trump administrations. We hope to have a candid discussion so that we can build the strong relationship of trust and cooperation. I am willing to bring the U.S.-Japan alliance to the further height because this is the cornerstone of Japan's diplomacy and the national security.
Also, in Ukraine, Russia's invasion is continuing. And yesterday, North Korea launched ballistic missiles. Security environment surrounding Japan is becoming increasingly severe. Based upon U.S.-Japan alliance, we are going to further advance the collaboration with like-minded allies, and under the vision of FOIP, Free and Open Indo-Pacific, we are going to play our role to reconstruct or maintain the international order based upon rule of law. Also, this year marks 80th anniversary of the United Nations. In order to prevent division of international community and to promote coordination, we are placing importance on the collaboration with Global South. In August this year, TICAD 9 is scheduled to be held in Yokohama, and we are taking every opportunities to conduct various dialogues at granular level. At the beginning of the year, as I did my calligraphy, what I wrote in my calligraphy was the message that beyond the difficulties, there is bright future. That was the message of the calligraphy that I did at the beginning of the year. With that firm belief, I am determined to work on the diplomatic efforts this year. And thank you very much for your close attention and support. That concludes my opening remarks. Thank you.
Please raise your hand if you have any questions. If you are called upon, and please move forward to the microphone and identify yourselves with name and affiliations. Nikkei, Ababa from Nikkei. As you had mentioned at the outset, Secretary of State Blinken has a meeting about Nippon Steel's intent to acquire U.S. Steel. I'm sure that this has become one of the topics in the meeting. This should be the positive move for both countries, and U.S. and Japan has been working to strengthen the economy. Under such circumstances, President Biden have issued a blocking order. What you expect the Secretary Blinken to act? And what was the response, and how much time you spent to discuss about this? And please share to the extent possible. As I mentioned at the outset, in U.S. Japan Foreign Ministers meeting, we have covered various topics and exchanged views and opinions. Now, as to the point that you had mentioned regarding the U.S. deal, this was indeed one of the topics that we have discussed. At the current juncture, there was no options but to talk about this topic, and I myself have raised this issue. Now, with the Secretary Blinken, in the field of economy, not just limited to the U.S. steel, we have exchanged views and inclusive of the Japanese companies and investment into the U.S. We have reaffirmed the importance of Japan-U.S. economic relationship with regard to Nippon Steel's intent to acquire U.S. Steel. This deal is beneficial for both countries. That is how we view about this possible deal. Therefore, from the laborers of the U.S. Steel, there are some voices that support this deal. Under such circumstances, this time, based upon the reasons of the national security, blocking order was issued, which is very regrettable. I convey such message. Now, for those business community in Japan and U.S., particularly in the Japanese business community, with regard to Japan's investment into the United States, there was the voice of the grave concern, which we have to take it very seriously. From this perspective, in the meeting that I had, in order to wipe out such concerns, I requested that the U.S. side would take some actions. Let me refrain from sharing the further details because this is a diplomatic dialogue.
Next question. Uemura-san from Yomiuri Newspaper. I'm Uemura from Yomiuri Newspaper. Happy New Year. Prime Minister Todo of Canada expressed his intention to resign. And what is your take of the achievement of Prime Minister Todo? And this 1 year, several G7 heads of states changed. But in order not to let the solidarity of G7 nations, what kind of initiatives is Japan going to take? Thank you. Regarding the announcement regarding the resignation by Mr. Todo, we are aware. However, this is another nation's internal political affair, so I'd like to refrain from making a comment. Japan and Canada are important strategic partners in the Indo-Pacific region, and as G7 members, we are closely collaborating in a wide range of areas such as people-to-people exchange, security, economy, and politics as G7 members. And as G7 member leader, he has made tremendous efforts, and I'd like to extend my heartfelt respect. G7 is a group of like-minded nations that share values and the principles. So with the international community facing various challenges, the most important role of G7 nations, or G7 solidarity is very important in this situation. So the most important role of G7 is to maintain and strengthen the international order based upon the rule of law. So in that context, the solidarity of G7 nations is very important. So this year is when Canada is the presidency holder of G7. So we would like to closely communicate with heads of states of G7 nations, and we would like to work to strengthen collaboration among G7 nations. Thank you. Next question.
Hiroguchi-san from NHK. Hiroguchi, NHK. My question is about realizations of the world without nuclear weapon. Japanese government has placing emphasis on NPT structure, Hidankyo, which won the Nobel Peace Prize, or the coalition partner Komeito is demanding and to participate as an observer to TPNW, and Prime Minister Ishiba set the policy to verify the participations. What is the policy that the Japanese government will take for the nuclear abolitions, particularly the President-elect Trump as well as the Russian Putin, the two nuclear powers? What is the approaches that the Japanese government is willing to take? Regarding Hidankyo's winning of the Nobel Peace Prize, I would like to take this opportunity for the great work for many years. Let me convey my heartfelt respect as well as congratulate them for winning the Nobel Peace Award. After the war, Japan has always been a peaceful nation, and Japan is the only country hit by the atomic bomb in the world. Ultimately, we would like to materialize a world without nuclear weapon. I believe this is the missions that Japan have to fulfill. But on the other hand, as you are well aware, in the countries surrounding Japan, inclusive of the nuclear and missile forces, there is a military buildup. Unfortunately, there is the rapid advancement of such military buildup. In that sense, Japan is now faced with the most difficult security environment after the end of the World War II. Therefore, as the government of Japan, to maintain and strengthen the deterrence, but at the same time, we have to appropriately cope with the threat, the security threat. On that premise, we, under the NPT structure, which is a universal structure that is participated by both nuclear power and non-nuclear countries, we have been placing much emphasis on the NPT structure. We would like to maintain a close relationship with the next U.S. administration so that toward building the world without nuclear weapon, we would like to take practical actions to make a way forward. Now, with regards to TPNW, that you have raised in your questions, based on the basic thinking that I have shared with you, what is the appropriate response is something that we are verifying without residing on the premature speculations moving forward. We will continue with our verifications and make decisions at the appropriate timing. Regarding Russia, in the context of Russia invading Ukraine, and they've been indicating about the possible use of the nuclear weapon, which is most regrettable. Nuclear threat, albeit the use by Russia shall not be tolerated, inclusive of making a purchase to Russia. We would like to take all the opportunities to work on the diplomacy.
Next person from Ryukyu newspaper, Mr. Akira. I'm Akira from Ryukyu Simple. Regarding the prevention of recurrence of incident involving U.S. Army personnel, so it was found out that a U.S. Marine Lance Corporal who was indicted for vandalism for having destroyed the door of a local school in November last year was once again arrested on the spot for vandalism at the end of last year. So the same person was arrested twice over a 2-month period. And what's the effectiveness of liberty system? What's your take on the effectiveness of liberty system? And is the Japanese government stance to urge further more stringent countermeasures? Thank you for the question. So the same person was arrested twice over 2 months period, and it's a regrettable thing. That never should have happened. Important thing is that the series of recurrence preventative measures announced by the U.S., including revision of Liberty system, actually prevents the incidents in the future. And all along, I have urged the commander of U.S. military based in Japan, Mr. Joyce, to enforce discipline of U.S. military personnel and prevent recurrence. But we would like to continuously urge the U.S. military to work on their efforts continuously. And we have expressed our regret to the incident, and we have urged the U.S. side to enforce discipline, but I'd like to take every opportunity to continuously urge the U.S. side to take countermeasures. Next question.
Japan Orient News, Azuhari-san.
Thank you. Japan Orient News. Happy New Year, Minister. My question is about Syria. On the latest development there, do you plan to lift the sanctions against Syria at any early time? And what kind of sanctions Japan has been applying against Syria? And also, do you plan to raise the embassy level there to ambassador level, and to have some VIP official visits similar to the European foreign ministers who visit Syria recently? Thank you.
With regards to series of the circumstances that is occurring in Syria is something that we are placing close eyes on with the high level of interest. Let me talk about what Japan has been doing. Based on the designations of the Securities Council's Terror and Sanctions Committee, we have been designated certain groups such as the Tahir al-Sham as well as the individuals to froze their asset. Now, against some of the officials in the Assad administration based upon the FX Act, we have been taking some measures as well. Now, talking about the sanctions, inclusive of the Security Council's Terror and Sanctions Committee, we are placing close eyes on the discussions among the international community so that we will be able to make an appropriate decision. As for Japan, the people of Syria should enjoy the desirable state. That is what we would like to see. Therefore, while place close eye on the future development, we will make an appropriate judgment regarding the sanctions, inclusive of the possibility of releasing of the sanctions. We will make an appropriate decisions. As for the government of Japan, we've been contacting to the officials of the provisional government, but for the details about the future response, let me refrain from making comments based upon the premature speculations. However, through the dialogue with the people, through the comprehensive dialogue, all the stakeholders have to play the constructive role. We hope that there will be the transitions into the peaceful state. With that expectations, we will maintain a close cooperation with the international community as well.
Next person, Myeon-san from Seoul Shimun. I'm Myeon from Seoul Shimun. Now, in South Korea, there is political turmoil continuing. So this situation, do you believe what kind of impact do you believe this situation will have on Japan-South Korea relation, especially in the area of security and economic relations? And what kind of measures is Japan taking? And on the 13th, by visiting South Korea, I'm told you are scheduled to have a meeting with the Korean foreign minister, but what is the current status of coordination with them, and what is the specific topics to be brought up in the meeting? Thank you. Firstly, regarding the current situation of South Korea, a series of movements over there. We are paying close attention to the series of movements in South Korea with great deal of interest. On that basis, Japan-South Korea relation is very important. And this stance remains unchanged. South Korea, as our partner, should be the partner that we should work with in addressing various challenges of international community. And given the current strategic environment, the importance of Japan-South Korea relation is increasingly more important. Last month, I had a telephone conference with Mr. Cho, the head of Diplomacy Bureau of South Korea, and including the telephone call, in the increasingly complex situation, Japan-South Korea, and also Japan-South Korea and U.S. should have a close collaboration, and we have reaffirmed the importance of to do so. And regarding my visit to South Korea, the details have not been determined yet, but if that becomes a reality, then at the level of ministers, foreign ministers level, and at the government's level, we would like to have a close coordination.
Next person, please. China Daily, Chan-san.
What is your specific plan for enhancing economic activities and people-to-people exchanges between Japan and China in the new year? By the way, Happy New Year.
A Happy New Year. At the end of last year, I made a visit to Beijing, and with the Foreign Minister Wang Yi, I had the meeting among the foreign ministers. Now, of the top leaders between Japan and China, has confirmed comprehensive promotion and of the mutually beneficial relationship based on the common strategic interest will be done, and also willing to build a constructive and stable relationship. That is the major policy. And with the Foreign Minister Wang Yi, I held a 3-hour meeting. And based on that, this year, high-level communications as well as the opportunity for the mutual travel shall be arranged. From that perspective, at the earliest, most appropriate timing within this year, we want to materialize Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit to Japan. And at that occasion, high-level economic dialogue is something that we are planning to hold. And this point was agreed with the Chinese side as well. We would like to start working, coordinating the further details. China is the largest trading partner for Japan. There's 13,000 Japanese companies operating in China, and there's 102,000 Japanese people living, not necessarily all belonging to the business community. We have to support the activities by the Japanese private companies, and we have to further support the relationship so that we would like to advance the relationship with China in a very good manner. When I made a visit to China, the people-to-people communications always serve as a basis of the two nations, and based upon the public opinions poll of both nations, about unfortunately 90% of the people have unfavorable opinion and to either to Japan or to Japan. So first of all, we would like to reactivate the exchange between the people so that we can further deepen the mutual understanding. We agree the importance of doing that. When I made a visit to China, we shall we conducted the high-level people-to-people and cultural exchange between Japan and China. We would like to further promote the mutual understanding between the two nations. Both countries is willing to make effort to that end.
Next question, Mr. Leo Lewis from Financial Times. So, do you, Minister, believe that Japan should possess the first strike capability in cyber warfare? And if so, what legal changes would be necessary to allow that to happen? Thank you. The cyberspace in the stringent geopolitical situation, cyberspace is a field of competition among nations that reflect the tense geopolitical situation. So, Japan's cyber capabilities improvement is an urgent challenge for Japan. And regarding this point, the national security strategy states as follows. In the area of cybersecurity, the capability of Japan should be raised to the level or higher than the level of Western nations. With that as our target, if there is a grave cyber attack threats that could have an impact on the important infrastructure, even without triggering the military attack, we are going to prevent such cyber attacks preventatively, and in order to prevent the further expansion of the damages, we are proactively taking cyber defense. And regarding the legal preparations arrangement to realize proactive cyber defense. Based upon advice from experts, we would like to put together as soon as possible the bill. And government as a whole is accelerating our discussion now. And for your information regarding the preemptive attack which you mentioned, the general comment is this. And Japan's initiative is placed within the boundaries of the Constitution and the international law. So, especially with regard to the exercise of self-defense rights under the Charter of the United Nations, our Japanese government stance is that the preemptive attack is not allowed in the stage where the military attack has not been launched on us. So that's our basic stance, which remains unchanged. Thank you.
Son-san in Tong Ilbo. Son is my name. Thank you. About the execution of the detention order, the ROK situation is fairly unstable. How do you see the current situation? And there is a possibility that such a situations can prolong. However, this year marks 60 years after normalizations of the diplomatic relationship. What specific preparations is underway in Japan? At ROK, there are various circumstances underway, but this is the domestic matter. Therefore, let me refrain from making any comments. As I had mentioned earlier, I am placing a keen eye, having a keen interest. Personally speaking, the resilience of the democracy of our ROK is something that I believe. Now, as to the point about 60 years anniversary of normalizations of the diplomatic relationship between Japan and ROK, this is fairly important for the future of the people of the two nations. Therefore, we have confirmed that we should start making a preparation. And the other day, we have made the announcement about the logo mark or about soliciting the project for the certifying project. So in line with the schedule, we would like to continue to make preparations for any of the event to mark the 60th anniversary?
Next question. IWJ, please be succinct. Happy New Year. IWJ Hamamoto, regarding the Ukraine situation, and I'd like to ask a question about your diplomatic stance toward Ukraine and Russia. December 30th, Financial Times said that 2013 to 2014, Russia prepared for the potential war and created a list of 160 targets, and if Russia targets the nuclear power plant, the current preventive system cannot protect nuclear power plants against Russian war. And Japan has provided aid to Ukraine and then unnecessarily has provoked Russia. And after Abe administration, Japan-Russia relation has deteriorated, and then the end result of Ukrainian war is evident. So I believe that Japan should stop the further aid to Ukraine, and Japan should switch to a neutral diplomatic stance toward the Ukraine situation. What is the take of the minister? Thank you. So regarding the press coverage you mentioned, I am aware. However, I'd like to refrain from commenting on the particular coverage. But anyways, as Japanese government, we are closely monitoring the situation or moves of Russia with great deal of interest. On that basis, regarding your question, invasion of Ukraine by Russia is a grave violation of international law, and it shakes the backbone of the international order. And I visited the local area myself, and unilateral attempt to change the status quo with the use of military force should never happen anywhere in the world. So based upon that stance and thinking, Japan has taken the consistent stance of supporting Ukraine, and we have enforced sanctions against Russia. So it is not the case that we are unnecessarily provoking Russia. And of course, as soon as possible, we do hope that this situation will come to an end. And of course, firstly, such a situation needs to be realized with the will and intention of Ukrainian people. But as Japan, as soon as possible, we would like to closely collaborate with the international community to realize lasting peace in Ukraine. As mentioned at the beginning, this year, various conflicts, wars, and turmoils need to be mitigated and stopped so that international order will be stabilized and reconstructed, and that should be what 2025 needs to be about. So based on that thinking, we will continuously address the situation in Ukraine. Thank you. Next question.
Kim-san, Mainichi Shimbun. Kim from Mainichi Shimbun. You earlier talked about the 60th anniversary of normalizations of the diplomatic relations between Japan and ROK in 1965. Normalizations of the diplomatic relationship has occurred, and after that, there has been various exchange and cooperations are being built to cover wide grounds. Once again, this year marks the 60th anniversary of normalizations of the diplomatic relationship. What is the significance that you perceive, and also the relationship among the two countries? How you would like to see the further development about the relationship of Japan and ROK? Yes, this year marks the 60 years anniversary. However, there has been so many things that has occurred up until now. Relationship between Japan and ROK has not been favorable all the time. Having said that, in the previous Kishida administration, Japan-ROK relationship has made a tremendous improvement and started to make an advancement. This good flow should be maintained so that we can further develop the relationship. Why do I say this? In these regions of Asia, Japan and ROK share the basic value and principles. State of economy of ROK has developed tremendously. And according to some of the press report, the GDP per capita is higher in ROK compared to Japan. There are many things that we can learn from each other. That is how I can describe the relationship between Japan and ROK. Of course, there are many challenges and issues. However, with continuous effort, we can resolve those issues one by one and to increase the area where we can cooperate. This is good not just for the two nations, however, for the regions as a whole, as for the entire world. Based on such thinking, we have to face this 60 years anniversary.
Sagashi-san from Kyoto newspaper. Sakaguchi from Kyoto News Agency. As you mentioned at the beginning regarding the dialogue with State Secretary Blinken, so since his appointment, he first overseas destination was Japan, and he visited Japan once again, expressing his stance of placing importance on Japan-U.S. relation. And what is your take on the significance of the dialogue with him, with mounting challenges in the international community? What was the significance of the dialogue with Mr. Blinken? Thank you very much for that. So as you mentioned, his first overseas destination was Japan, and his last, it may not be last, but toward the end of his tenure, he decided to come to visit Japan. And this shows how he values Japan-U.S. relation. And I welcome such stance. And shortly in the USA, the new administration is starting, but during this period, more than ever, Japan-U.S. alliance and relation should be brought to new heights that we have not had before. And as Japanese government, we would like to continuously work with the next U.S. administration so that we can further develop the bilateral relations. So Mr. Blinken served his tenure for a long period, and toward the end of his tenure, he visited Japan, and we've reaffirmed our intentions, and that was quite significant. So moving forward, we would like to build on what's been created, and we'd like to make utmost efforts. So we are concluding the press conference. Thank you very much.